have some room? Do we have enough room for them? Or should we use up the bigger venue?
We have.
Some seats up front.
Sound's not working, so they have the same.
Oh, okay. Okay. We welcome all of you to tonight's meeting. And before we get started, Councilman Hens will offer a word of prayer.
Father, we bless you, and I speak peace over Nacogdoches. Holy Spirit, we welcome you in here. Come and do whatever you want to do. We long to see your kingdom come to Nacogdoches as it is in heaven. We want to see this place flourish. Where there is poverty, we want to see thriving. Where there is sickness, we want to see health. Would you give us favor and wisdom as we make decisions tonight? Give us clarity of mind. We love you. We trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. I'd now like to call the meeting to order for April 16th, 2019. And our first agenda item will be our open forum. And our open forum is the public's opportunity to address council on any matter related to the city that is not on the agenda. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, City Council generally cannot discuss, consider, or take action on matters not listed on the agenda. So your comments are limited to 3 minutes. The first person that we have is Brenda Riggs. And if you'd give us, just state your name and your address, and then
Brenda Riggs. My address is 3606 Tall Oak, Nacogdoches, Texas, 75965.
Okay.
Mayor Brophy and council. In my 28 years in Nacogdoches, I've had several experiences with our police. I've been served by them and experienced their protection, which is their highest function. But I have also seen evidence of and heard of multiple instances of their tendency to use provocation and excessive force and to initiate unwarranted harms from the criminal justice system, harms that can reverberate throughout the community and over an individual's lifetime, harms that are disproportionate to the behavior or law violations of the citizens confronted by police, harms that rob people of their potential contributions to society. Police presence and self-restraint serves our our citizens and the community's well-being and reputation. We need well-trained, respectful, and thoughtful police behavior. We need police who are aware of the criminal justice system's potential to harm disproportionately and who are inclined to measure their responses and reduce those harms. I and others are calling on the City Council to establish a committee that is representative of the diverse experiences of the community and that will include informed and knowledgeable individuals who can look into best policing practices and training and education that will reduce harms to our citizens, our institutions, our community, and to our police. It will not do to have committee members who will blindly support current police practices and culture. I am convinced there are better ways to do policing. A reorientation of our police away from provocative behaviors, intimidation, and excessive force and towards its best tradition of protection and service to all of us is desperately needed. To neglect addressing this would be to foster a permissive environment that enables abuse of power. Given that police have an awesome power in our society and the broad benefit of the doubt from citizens and juries, we as a city have a responsibility to better train and guide our officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riggs. The next person we have is Gabrielle Harris.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Everyone can hear me? Okay, awesome. Good evening. My name is Gabrielle Harris, and I am a student at SFA first and foremost, but I'm also the political action chair for our student NAACP, the vice president for Texas College Democrats, and the president for SFA College Democrats. I'm sure it's clear as to why I'm here speaking on behalf of 2 students who were the victims of a violent attack from a Nacogdoches police officer. Though I am not those 2 young ladies, I see myself in them. It is terrifying that in the place that I choose to go to school, something like this can happen. I suggest that if the City Council likes their positions on the City Council, you begin to make changes. You need to advocate for us and with us as we ask for an external investigation into the Nacogdoches Police Department. Further, you need to start showing up and listening to what we have to say and when we have to ask you questions. We see who shows up and we see who listens. And to be honest, not many of these people are on our city council right now. When city council doesn't listen to us, it's time to replace them with us. This organizing is far from over. The rally that just happened today had about 150 people, 150 students, and I can assure you that these 150 students will be 150 student votes to flip a city council seat. I look forward to seeing all of you in a voting booth on April 22nd to make sure that we have justice and change in our community and for our school. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Next, we have Tim Garrigan.
I notice you don't let me see the clock.
You should be able to, right there.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to address the police also. And a lot of people think I don't like the police, and I just want to say those are people who just don't know me. I have a lot of respect for what police do. It's extremely important. It's not a responsibility I would choose to bear. It's too hard a job, frankly. But like anything worth doing, if there's a problem with policing, it needs attention and it needs to be corrected. Too many people in this town are under the impression that the police work here flawlessly, and they will deny that there's any racial problem with the police. Typically, people will bring up the annual racial profiling report. Every year it gets presented to the city, and every year we're told it means the city is in great compliance and all is well. And that's only because that report is designed to hide the problems, not to present them. Now, I've looked at the 2018 profiling report, and it shows that the numbers of people stopped and the proportions of their ethnicities closely match that of the population. Well, that's because those numbers are allowed to be made up. They cannot be checked on. The police can tell you whatever numbers they want to that they have stopped, okay? And that's as far as anything gets reported publicly that I'm aware of. However, if you look a little bit more closely, it will show that once the Nacogdoches Police Department stops a driver, if they are white and they are black, they are treated differently. Blacks are 4 times as likely to be subject to a search as whites. Not even close. Those are very dramatic, significant numbers. And it translates if whites were searched at the same rate as black African Americans in Nacogdoches, the police department would have searched more than 280 more white people. If blacks were searched at the same rate as whites, there would have been 162 fewer black people searched. Now, that's a very simple, direct statistic. You know, even though there are far more whites here, 211 blacks were stopped and searched. Only only 86 whites were stopped and searched. It's dramatic. Now, there are also, a lot of people are going to say, you know, well, of course the blacks get searched more often because they're the criminals. No, that's not true either. The same report shows that the white people who are subject to searches are 19% more likely to be caught with contraband. Okay, so the opposite is true. If Nacogdoches were interested in fighting crime, there would be more white people getting searched, not fewer.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Thank you.
Olinka Green.
Right on, that be me. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All power to the people. My name is Olenka Green, and I know I only got 3 minutes, but I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm here to stand in solidarity with the students of Stephen F. Austin on this horrendous attack on these 2 black females that were brutalized by this police force. What we're looking at is not new to America. What we're looking at is not new to Nacogdoches. If you read 100 Years of Lynching, you will find out that Nacogdoches is in here for lynching. Come on now. Talk about it. This is a systemic problem. Yes. This is embedded in this community. The same police officers that are doing these crimes come out of the same police force that were doing the crimes in 100 Years of Lynching. What I'm here today to say is that you being the city council, you have the power to make sure that this tree does not grow anymore or any higher. You have the power to make sure that these young women are not criminalized. They have went through 4 years of high school to come to college, to get a degree, so they may go home and be influential to their communities. They did not call to be attacked. They were just leaving a pool party like most of you have been leaving a pool party. They did not ask to be criminalized. They did not ask to be plummeted, breasts pulled out, head butted, beaten like animals. I woke up this morning and this little town of Nacogdoches is on BET News. This little town of Nacogdoches is on CNN. You don't want to be known as a place where students don't feel comfortable at your college. You have students coming here from all over the world to get an education. You want to be known as a city, as a place where students can come and feel comfortable. You don't want students to come here and feel like that their parents cannot send their children here, because that's what's going to happen. When we say shut it down, it probably would be that we would do a boycott and tell them don't send kids to Stephen F. Austin because they are not safe on their campus. Today you have the right, today that you have the wise choice to make something happen and remove yourself from this book. This is 100 Years of Lynching. This is 2019. Remove yourself from this. Remove that Confederate thought process. Don't criminalize these young black girls. They already are criminalized enough. When they cannot feel safe walking in this community by the very people that say they're supposed to be protecting them, what is that supposed to be? Don't shame yourself, city council. Do what's right. Take that police officer on that force and redeem yourself, or you will deserve to be in the book of 100 Years of Lynching. All power to the people.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
You're welcome. I try to be respectful, ma'am.
I believe you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Kim Cole. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kim T. Cole, and I am here on behalf of the young ladies who were brutally assaulted by a Nacogdoches officer. I am the attorney representing 2 of those girls who were assaulted by the officer. I'm not sure if you all have seen the video. I can certainly send it out if you'd like. I don't know what version you've seen. But this officer approached young ladies who were doing nothing more than returning from a pool party on campus that had occurred on campus, and they went to an apartment complex with friends who resided there. And they were simply standing around, congregating in the parking lot, waiting on other friends to return from the same party so that they could continue to hang out with their friends. And this officer approached them and launched a brutal assault against them. He ripped one young lady's wig from her head and slammed her to the ground, ripped her t-shirt from her body, and slammed her head on concrete. The video is agonizing.
Yes.
And when her friend went to her aid, trying to pull her from his grasp, they were begging him, pleading with him to stop his assault because he hadn't identified himself as an officer. They had no idea who this guy was. All she knew was that a white man was beating up her friend, and she went to her aid, and he turned his attack on her. And what happened was unthinkable. He ripped her shirt off, exposing her bare breasts. These are young girls in bikinis. This is a grown man, a police officer. He's actually held this woman in a headlock and slammed her on the ground. She is bruised up, she is scraped up, scarred up, but worse yet, she is emotionally scarred. And to add insult to injury, the city has elected to charge these young ladies who have done nothing wrong. They were not suspected of having committed a crime. They had not committed a crime. They were simply standing in a parking lot, waiting for their friends to return from a party. They did absolutely nothing wrong. This officer brutally assaulted these girls. And the city of Nacogdoches has taken it upon itself to double down on this assault and to attack them in the legal system by charging them with crimes. This will put their education at risk. This could change the entire trajectory of their lives. We're here to assure that they get justice. We demand that the charges be dropped, and we demand that this officer be charged. We demand justice. What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! If we don't get it, shut it down! 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 What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Thank you, Ms. Cole. We now move to agenda item number 4. We're going to wait just a moment.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want? Now!
Thank you.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! And if we don't get it, shut it down! If we don't get it, shut it down! If we don't get it, shut it down! If we don't get it,
trust that y'all will do your
shut
job.
it down!
Thank you. We trust that you'll do your job, all right? It's very important, okay?
Thank you.
It's real important, all right? All right? Do your jobs, all right? The world is watching. See y'all later. Take care. I'll file to the 50. Y'all take care of yourselves, all right? All right. All right. Y'all take care of yourselves. All right. Y'all take care of yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 4 is our consent items. If there's no discussion about the minutes, then Chair will entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion we pass the consent agenda as it stands.
Okay.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. If no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 5 is a public hearing. Mr. Manty?
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight I'm here to present a rezoning case. And this is for a rezoning from R1, which is a single family residence zoning, to B1 local business on the property located at 3609 Southeast Stallings, generally located on the East Loop, right at the city limits. The applicant informed staff the land is being rezoned in order to allow him to operate a family-owned Mexican restaurant. The property is 0.7 acres and currently rezoned as R1. I believe it's currently inhabited by a resident, or the applicant planned on making it a restaurant, and so he would have to meet all the commercial requirements to convert a residence into a commercial use. And I have on the screen here showing the location map of the property in question, right at the center of the intersection of the loop. I have an area map showing the location on site. I have a picture here showing the current land uses around it. To the north of the property, I'll go back to the map here, and to the north of it we have an apartment, and I believe it's vacant. To the south we have some strip commercial development, which is the Donuts. And then to the east, we have a single-family residential development, and to the west is a funeral home. The area in question is in close proximity to the loop and has a mixed use of residential and commercial development. The applicant proposes this rezoning for the intended use because of the same existing development uses at the intersection. So the applicant believes that the intersection is currently made up of commercial development, and so putting the restaurants on the corner will blend in with the existing land uses in the area. Staff has informed the applicant that there will be the need to have formal buffers erected during construction, regardless of the vegetation preservation on site. So since there's a residence adjacent to the property, the applicant will have to erect some form of screening, and recommendation will be a 6 feet wooden wall to screen the commercial development from the residence. On the screen, we have the zoning map. It's currently zone R1, as I stated earlier. To the north of it is a single-family residence. To the south is B1 zoning. To the east, we have R1 single-family, and then to the south, we have a B1 local business as well. So based on the map, you realize that we have commercial development on the 3 nodes of this of this intersection. So the applicant believes that rezoning this to B1 would be in conformity to the existing zoning at the intersections. Staff also believes that a lower intensity zone will likely not have any adverse impact on the residential properties currently. And then in the future, if the applicant decides to do any other use apart from the restaurant, because it's zone B1, it will not lead to the development of any use that would have a greater impact on the surrounding zoning district. Staff therefore believes this rezoning will likely not have any adverse impact on surrounding uses and the zoning as well. The future land use map calls for the entire intersection to be zoned to be used for commercial development. And per the 2003 comprehensive plan, the intent for intersection is to cluster commercial uses along roadways with the greatest traffic handling capacity and expand upon existing commercial and industrial development. So the future land use map calls for the area to have some form of clustered commercial development. That is why there's a circle around there being depicted for commercial uses. And so this rezoning, if approved, will not violate the intent of the 2003 comprehensive plan. I don't have a floodplain map because no part of the property lies within the 100 or 500-year floodplain. We did send out 7 notifications to property owners within the 200-foot buffer. Nobody responded in opposition, and nobody responded in favor of it. We also presented this case to the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 8th, and they unanimously approved that they recommended an approval to the City Council. So staff recommendations and finding, we believe that since we have the 3 corners of this intersection already zoned for commercial, rezoning this to B1, which is a lower intensity commercial rezoning, would fit the already uses in the neighborhood. Also, per the comprehensive plan, we believe that this rezoning will allow for clustered commercial development around the intersection, which is the intent of the comprehensive plan. And the applicant is well informed that there will be need to put in a buffer when the commercial use is developed. Based on the above, staff believes that rezoning this property from R1 to B1 is in line with the comprehensive plan and will likely not have any adverse impact on surrounding uses. This will bring my presentation to an end, and I'll be willing to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to this agenda item? Yes, sir. Please come up. How are you tonight?
Doing good.
Good.
My name is Sandy McCorvey, and I'm a property owner that's adjacent to the east of this property. All too often, we're commercializing everything. This has been a residential property eons ago. The guy built this home that I purchased from him back in 1964. You have other family members on that side. You also have a church that's 2 properties down that's not adjacent. This home sets as a cornerstone home for residential. I'm requesting that it doesn't get changed. Across the street, which would probably be, I guess, the south where the store sits, or the Donut Palace, is that south? Mm-hmm. Whatever direction that is there's other properties. It's already commercialized. There's not any commercialized property on that side outside of an apartment complex, and I think that's still residential but not business, if I'm correct. I'm requesting that block stay R1 and that the purchaser purchase property in a zone that's already commercialized, which is across the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCorvey. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? Yes, sir.
Good evening to all. I'm the owner of this property since last year, and my name is Adam Flores. First, planning to change from R1 to V1 to do a Tex-Mex restaurant, and we will serve it only pretty much in the mornings and lunch, and we just wanna try to keep the place, safe, no noise, we just don't want to be like too noisy to the neighbors, but we just want to do like Tex-Mex restaurant there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Flores. Anyone else? Okay, none. Council, questions and comments for? Yes, please, go right ahead.
This is a cartographic comment. Can you, on future maps, can you label the roads?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because, it's like you got a lot of maps on there, but, we have to find the...
Yeah, it does, the loop and wooden, yeah.
Okay. That's what you're saying.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Could you speak to the parking situation, what that would look like?
The applicant will meet the parking requirements, and I believe one is to 200 for that use. He would have to meet all of them. It has to be paved, concrete, paved, and there has to be adequate entry and exit and all of those stuff. So right after the rezoning, he would have to meet every other subdivision requirement before this restaurant can be done. So.
There is going to be a requirement for fencing screening on both east and north sides of the lot. Okay.
Yes, and that was the first thing I made him aware when he came to the office. So.
Okay. Anything else? If not, Chair will entertain a motion one way or the other to approve or not.
I'll make a motion that we pass agenda item number 5 as it's written.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. No further discussion.
I have something I want to say.
Okay.
I won't support the motion. I agree that that's a commercial site, but I've been talking about trying to put standards in for the roadway since, like we talked about, the Appleby Sand Road, trying to protect the character of the loop, and we haven't done any of that. And without some assurance that there is going to, beyond our minimal design standards, there's no way to protect that. Now, I understand it's on the loop, it's a residential site that should be a commercial site, but in lieu of some detailed design standards for how that's going to go, I don't think we should change it.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Agenda item number 6, second quarter 2018 and 19 fiscal year financial update. Mr. Jeffers?
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. Mayor and council, this is the mid-year report. There's nothing remarkable about the report. Everything is pretty much where it should be. And after this report, then we will begin the educational process like we have in the past on the budgetary process, address request, and other items. Also, council will have a discussion later about whether or not you want a work session. You had one this past year, or whether or not you want multiple work sessions. But to the report, revenues are within expectations. I think it's important to mention that the property tax is $8.5 million of the budget of $25.5 million, and we're at 98% of collections. Of course, the bulk of those property taxes are collected at the beginning of the fiscal year. That's nothing new. Sales tax is about $6.3 million, and we're at 52%, a smidgen above where we would like for it to be, and we'll just have to wait and see how it performs for the remainder of the fiscal year. We mentioned that building permits fees were down. Typically, we collect about $100,000 a year, and we're a little behind schedule. That may be an issue, and it's just too soon to tell because some of those fees don't come in on a monthly basis like you might expect them to. Mentioned that revenues were at 64%. What did I do, Mr. Pearl? Okay, now we figured it out. I knew that I was going to blame you. And general fund on expenditures. Expenditures are about $25.2 million. We're within expectations or a little bit under. We're at 48%. Most of that downside is because of unfilled positions, and we have a projected ending cash balance for the current fiscal year of about $1.5 million after we take out the 25%. That $1.5 million is critical to capital outlay that we will be considering as we build the budget. On the utility fund, revenues of $19.6 million. Water sales are down about 2%, but it's not unusual as we come off the winter months for them to be down. Sewer sales are up 1%, and revenues overall are down 1%. We have total expenses in the utility fund of about $14.7 million, and everything is within expectations. On the sanitation fund, revenues are estimated to be about $6.5 million. Expenses, our operating expenses, are at $4.5 million. We're where we should be on our charges and revenues overall. Landfill gate receipts are up about 10%. Don't really have an explanation as to why, other than more refuse is coming into the landfill. And then you see those estimated ending cash balances. Once again, they're important for capital outlay, and when you look at operations, that $2.5 million, most of that is going to go to replace the sanitation disposal fleet. We have capital set aside of about $1.2 million, and then the large item, the landfill, because those sales are so expensive to build and to close and to maintain. Madam Mayor will be happy to answer any questions that the council might have after public comment.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here that has a comment about our mid-year report? Nope. Hearing none. Council, questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jeffers. Agenda item number 7, consider proposed City of Nacogdoches employee handbook. Mr. Stephen Pearl, good evening.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Here to talk about the proposed handbook for the city of Nacogdoches. And going to get started with current policy, what we have today. Was the one that we're working under and using was adopted by council in 1995, so I think it was in 4th grade when that was adopted. Since that time, we've had multiple policies that have been revised or added or removed as needed, which has kind of created, in my opinion, a hodgepodge of a personnel policy manual that we're working with, and it can be confusing to employees. It was confusing to me when I first got here, trying to make sure I had everything. So for a while now, we've been working on a new employee handbook. We've used best practice draft policies from Betty Lynn, who's a personnel attorney and has worked with the city and with multiple cities across Texas on various personnel issues. And some of the policies in there are specific to us, such as a Christmas pay, step up for non-public safety employees. And while this is a total rewrite, it reflects almost exactly what we have as current policy. But there are a couple changes, and I'm going to point those out. Hopefully I don't get too wordy. I try to make this move along as fast as I can. Next slide, need for the employee handbook. The main reason for an employee handbook is to protect both the rights of the employee and the employer. It will also get our personnel policies in a single document. Like I said, will make it easier for our employees when they're trying to make sure they're following the rules and procedures, and there's not a policy out somewhere that did not get into their manual that they have. And it just has all the do's and don'ts clearly listed and laid out where employees can easily refer to them, and it just helps the city run smoothly when employees know what's expected of them. So getting to this point, to where we are now, the entire draft was reviewed over multiple meetings with the city manager, city attorney, city secretary, and myself. It has been available to employees for over a year now. Emailed out to council in November of last year, and a copy of this policy draft was given any time requested by an employee, whether we sent it by email or printed them off a copy. Employees had multiple opportunities to provide comments. All of those comments were reviewed by myself and the city manager. And some of them brought up excellent points, and actually we had to go in and make some revisions, so we appreciate the employees taking a look at that and helping us along. We received feedback from directors and department heads during our executive staff meetings and our department head meetings. And just with the next slides, I'm going to give highlights on each section, point out the significant changes. And if you have any questions at any time, you can ask me, or if you wanted to wait till the end, either way, feel free. So section 1 is just general provisions, talks about our objectives, our at-will. Texas is an at-will employer where both the employer and the employee can end employment for any reason at any time except illegal reasons, of course. ADA, cannot discriminate against disabilities. Equal employment opportunity, cannot discriminate against race, age, color, sex, religion, national origin. As far as amendment and changes to the policy, the city manager can amend, change, adopt, interpret policy, which is a best practice for council manager forms of government, which we are, where the city manager has the ultimate responsibility over the over supervision of the employees. Now, the city council still has authority of the personnel matters that are given by state law or city charter. Covers harassment, violence prevention, and harassment just does not include sexual harassment only. I mean, there's race, religion, color, retaliation, things like that that fall in the harassment category. And we do, in the new policy, it requires employees to report any types of acts of harassment or violence, acts of violence. And we would like them to do this because we want employees to report these types of issues before they get out of hand. If it's something simple and we can address and say, hey, here's what the rules say, here's what the policy says, and so we don't get down this path that we could have stopped early. So we just, anytime anybody notices anything, they should report that. Employer's responsibility, Section 2, attendance and work hours. We've got to come to work on time, and we've got to put in the required hours to get the job done. Our normal work hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The city manager can approve alternate work schedules, and some departments do have alternate work schedules because we need to meet the needs of the citizens that we serve. We all must dress appropriately. Dress is still mainly up to the department heads. There are a little more guidelines on appropriate dress, but ultimately it's up to the departments. While out on paid sick leave or workers' comp leave, employees cannot work another job because if they're sick, they should be sick. Same requirements as we currently have for addressing the media. New employees may be required to sign forms when issued certain city property that approves us for payroll deductions if the property is not returned or it's returned damage. And then also new is a policy that requires employees to report arrest and or loss of driver's license. Depending on their job, they may be required to have a CDL or something. And so while that they do tell us and we find that out, this is just a requirement in there for them to tell us. Employee hiring and appointment, Section 3. I'll just talk a little bit about the process that outlines in the policy. Department heads submit a request to fill a vacant budgeted position. The city manager approves that filling of that position. Once the department or hiring manager has selected a candidate, it then moves to HR to make the conditional job offer and set up any of the needed pre-employment testing. Our employee categories are still what they are now: exempt, non-exempt, full-time, part-time. We also have volunteers throughout the year in different departments. The nepotism policy that addresses relationship issues between employees with direct or indirect supervision of one another, includes family members, marriages, dating, those types of things. This section also addresses reemployment, promotions, demotions, transfers, and interim assignments, and points out that we do have a chain of command. Although most departments are open door, we have the open door policy, but the chain of command is important. We have people that come talk to me, and I have to say, well, is your supervisor aware of this? And so I'll provide guidance or help them out, or I'll talk with your supervisor, and we get make sure everybody is involved. Now, if it's something terrible, then they can go straight to the city manager or myself, and we'll make sure and get it handled as well. But that's all in there, and it kind of just shows our organizational structure. Council, city manager, department heads, directors. Section 4, very similar to what we do now. Our current policy, I believe, says probationary period, so we're going to do orientation period. Performance evaluations. Employees have a 6-month orientation period when they're hired to a position or moved to a new position. And it's 12 months for police officers and firefighters. They have a longer training program to assess their employees and get them acquainted with everything. The orientation period is used to evaluate employees in their new position and for the employees to learn, understand, and meet the expectations of their position. Policy also requires supervisors to conduct performance evaluations on their employees once a year at minimum. And these are ultimately done to help the employee be successful in their job. I know there's a lot of different ways to do performance evaluations, which that's fine, however you would like to conduct that, but we need you just doing something as a supervisor so you're talking to your employee and coaching them. Section 5, compensation. Employees receive overtime in accordance with FLSA. Employees are paid every 2 weeks. I think our current policy actually says we get paid twice a month, so we actually get paid every 2 weeks. Pay is done by direct deposits. One of the requirements on direct deposit is what do you do if employees do not have a bank? And so we do have a cash card option. No one has signed up for that option, but the bank the city uses does have an option for us to provide the employee with a cash card that they could use if they do not have a bank. Full-time employees receive step pay and longevity pay, depending on the number of years they've been here with the city. Step pay goes out to 10 years, and longevity pay is a statutory requirement for police and fire, and that goes out to 25 years, but we do that for all employees in the city, all full-time employees. And then Christmas pay, it's something that's kind of unique to us, I guess, but all full-time employees, the draft proposed policy says if you've been employed before December 10th, because that's when that will do all the accounting for the payroll, but you'll receive a $75 Christmas pay. That is a little different than the way we do it now. We actually have it set up if you've been here 6 months or less by December 10th, I'm sorry, then you only get $25, but it's kind of minimal and a lot easier for us just to do the $75, and there's probably just a handful of employees that fall in the $25.
And it's Christmas.
And it's Christmas. This is probably the most significant change in this whole policy draft that we have. And what this is concerning is the payment of accumulated leave upon termination. So currently, if an employee leaves in good standing, so they give 2 weeks notice, they're not being terminated for a disciplinary action, and they've been employed 6 months, they get their vacation paid out to them, whatever's on the books. And then if they've been employed 2 years, they'll get 25% of their sick leave paid out. So one of the changes that we put in here is if an employee has been with the city, retires through the city, and leaves in good standing as well, they can get 50% of their sick leave banks paid out. And just to put some note, I did include that in there. So currently at the 25% payout, the way that we do it now for retirees, it's averaging about $27,896 a year. And so pretty close to $30,000, and that's looking at the last 4 years. So in reviewing that last 4 years, I took those people and they're sick, and if they were under the policy that we're proposing, it would average about $11,225 increase a year on that payout. Now that is just an estimate based on the past 4 years. That number could be dependent on multiple variables such as the employee's pay rate, the number of retirements in a given year. But while this is an added benefit and comes with an additional cost, it is also intended to reduce excessive use of sick leave, help with retention, and like I said, it is an added benefit for the employees. So that's on there for your consideration. Did I explain that all right, or do you have any questions about that? Okay. Absences and leaves, Section 6. Of course, we have FMLA. We're required to provide that to our employees, which is 12 weeks of protected job leave for birth or adoption of a child, or a serious health condition, or the child or spouse's serious health condition. That is FMLA is unpaid, but we also require the employees to use their vacation or sick as it applies to policy while they're out on FMLA or comp time. So most of the time they do receive pay during that 12 weeks while they're out. We get 10 holidays per year. No changes there. Well, I think we left off a holiday on the 95 adoption, so I think the 95 policy actually says 9 holidays if you look at that. But since I've been here in history, it's always been 10 holidays a year. Sick leave, well, I skipped over vacation. Vacation, we start at 10 days per year. I think employees, if they've been here 10 years or less, they can accrue 168 hours, I think 21 days, and if they've been here over 10 years, it's 240 hours or 30 days, I believe that's correct. Sick leave is 15 days per year. New to this, and I guess there's a little history to this too as well. The 95 policy that we have has what's called emergency leave in there, and the way the sick leave policy is written in our current policy, sick leave cannot be used for family members. It's only for yourself or your doctor's appointments. So emergency leave was added in, which gave employees 40 hours a year, does not carry over, just 40 hours that they could use for illnesses of their child or their spouse or family members, immediate family members within the household. So after many back and forth discussions, the draft that you were provided actually has it kind of still listed that way, but it looks like the way that we will be going is doing away with the emergency leave. I think I changed the name to family sick leave since that made more sense than emergency leave, and just allowing employees to use sick leave for their family members, immediate family members in the household. So if their child or somebody gets seriously ill, the employee would have access to 960 hours instead of just 40 hours in that year. So that's a big change. And then funeral leave, we get 2 days per year. That does not carry over. So anything past that, the employee could use vacation leave or comp time if they have it. The other thing this absences and leave covers, for the most part, we try to give all of our employees 2 15-minute breaks per day. Those are paid breaks, and that's not a requirement. That's just a good practice, so we do try to provide that. And for the most part also, we do a 1-hour unpaid lunch break for employees. And there's some with alternate work schedules that may do 30 minutes, and PD has a different way of doing that as well. But for most employees, that's the way it's done. And then the last thing in the break section is also our requirements as a city for nursing mothers. And we're actually looking to, our goal is to become designated as a mother-friendly workplace. And so there's a little bit of policy language that needs to be included, and it's really nothing over the top that you're required to do to get that designation. It's mostly law that we have to follow anyway, so that's just kind of our goal, is to have that designation as a city. So. Section 7, discipline, appeals, and grievances. In most instances, we take the approach of a progressive discipline, counseling, written warning, suspension, demotion, right? We try to do everything we can to correct the behavior of the employee. If they, I don't know, took $100 out of the water office, then there's probably not a progressive disciplinary plan for them. So the policy, it lists a number of prohibited acts, but it also states it's impossible to list all forms of behavior that's considered unacceptable in the workplace. So these are just examples in there. And then kind of a change as well to this policy is the grievance appeal process. Our current policy is kind of somewhat confusing, and department heads had asked, hey, can we do something about this? There's a pathway for appeals, there's a pathway for grievances, there's only certain times you can use appeals, only certain times you can use grievances. And so what we did is we kind of streamlined the process, and we just put it into one grievance appeal process and just outline I think there's 3 or 4 steps that they can go through where they talk with their supervisor, personnel director, division director, and then ultimately to the city manager, and the city manager can form a grievance committee, appeal committee if he chooses to. So. Section 8, we're getting close, I promise. Separations from the city include resignation, retirement, dismissal, and termination. Dismissal does not just include someone being fired or terminated, but it also includes job abandonment. They disappear. We don't know where they went. So we usually have a 3-day policy on that. If we don't hear from you or have any clue where you're at in 3 days, then we just assume that you have left us and your employment's over. Incapacity. where the employee is unable to perform the functions of their job for whatever reason. Reduction in force, reorganization, and then if the employee were to pass away or something like that. We also offer exit interviews to all separating employees to solicit constructive feedback to make any needed improvements in the department or the city that we can. We try to take that knowledge as they're leaving. One thing that we've actually looked at, I think Mr. Jeffers sent me an article, is to do stay interviews. So let's do this while they're here instead of before they leave. And so I think that's one of the things that we're going to work on. Section 9, employee benefits. City provides benefits to full-time employees. This includes health insurance, life insurance, and retirement. We provide the health insurance to the employee, for the employee at no cost to the employee. The cost of their dependents is passed on to the employee. City provides and is required to provide workers' compensation for employees who are injured or become ill on the job. And same policy there. We pay the first 7 days if the employee is required to be off work, and then workers' comp will pick up, I think it's 70% of the employee's pay after that, so the employee can use vacation or sick time or comp time if they choose to make up the other 30%. As far as we offer city health insurance to retirees at the time of retirement. They're responsible for this cost, and they can stay on it till they become Medicare eligible. A change to this is that if the employee was not on the city's insurance when they go to retire, then they do not have the option to continue with the retiree insurance and for their dependents. If they retire and their dependents are not on the insurance, then they can't put them on after they retire. So that is a change. We currently allow them to do that now. We have an employee assistance program that provides 3 free counseling sessions for a number of different types of issues, depression, financial issues, marital issues, things like that the employees can use that they may be facing. And after a year, a full-time employee is eligible for educational assistance. It's current policy now. They can get up to $1,000 reimbursed if it has something to do with their job and it's approved, and they make a C or better on those classes. So. Health and safety. It's our goal to keep all employees safe and provide a safe work environment. And this policy lists a number of safety rules. Most of them are common sense to help us accomplish that goal. It outlines the process and reporting requirements for if the employee is injured on the job. It includes our tobacco use, our smoking policy, and our city drug and alcohol policies for DOT and non-DOT employees. I guess a lot has changed since '95 with drug testing and DOT, and so we want to make sure we're compliant in all of those areas. Something new that we have added to this policy is an accident review board, and this board will be used to review all of our vehicle accidents to kind of get a standardization of recommended disciplinary action, if any, for a city vehicle accident, and to help with prevention programs, driver safety programs, things like that. So it'll be made up of, have it in there, maybe I think it's 5 employees of the bigger departments, police, fire, water utilities, public works, and myself, and then have a vehicle maintenance employee serve as a liaison or just to assist to make sure there's no issues with the vehicle and things like that. 2 more. Travel policy. Policy provides the approval process for travel. I think it's only like 3 pages, very short policy. And how transportation, lodging, and meal allowances are to be handled. Pretty much it's staying exactly the way we do it now. We are changing to the General Service Administration, GSA, standard rate for Texas, meal per diem. Since I've been here, and probably many years before that, the city provided $10 for breakfast, $10 for lunch, and $15 for dinner for an employee who's out on city business travel. And so the GSA, it could change, but currently it's listed as 13 for breakfast, 14 for lunch, and 23 for dinner. So I guess around a $20 increase there. Probably bad math, but it's pretty close. Section 12, social media and electronics communications. This is the last section of our policy manual. And to kind of sum this section up, it's just employees just need to be smart when using social media or the city's electronic communications. And our electronic communications are for city business and not for personal use. And then also any city business that's done on electronic communications can get a Public Information Act request. So employees need to be aware of that. Our purchases, download, changes to our systems should need to be approved by the IT director. It also includes that all supervisor personnel are required to have a telephone and a number where they can be contacted if there's some type of emergency that occurs and they need to report or set up some kind of operations. And then our telephone communication, gosh, I got lost there. Oh, I'm sorry. If telephone communications are required for an employee's position, there is a way that they can request a telephone stipend that has 3 different tiers that's set by the city manager. And those tiers are based on, are you using a smartphone, are you checking email, do you receive less than 200 minutes a month that are probably for city business. So there's a little bit involved on who gets what tier, but then there's different levels in that. That yearly amount that's provided for that is about half of what the employee's cell phone bill would cost, because it is their personal cell phone as well. And that's all I have. If you have any questions on any specific policies, if I missed something that you would like me to go over, I'll be happy to do that. And I'm pretty sure tonight is just for discussion only. And I think maybe the next meeting or the meeting after that, we'll look to bring it to you all for approval. So.
Well, it says consider proposed. Well, okay, we can hold that off. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this? Nope. Okay. Council, questions, comments?
I like it, Stephen. You did a good job. I avoid these meetings like the plague at work.
Yeah. We've done a good job. Everybody's been involved.
You did a really good job.
Thank you.
I was curious about the payout of the sick leave, the max accrual. They get 15 days accrued per paycheck. Per paycheck, but over the year on an accrual basis. And they've got to be at that max accrual. So if, say, it just fell on the right day, but they go through June 30th, so Q1, Q2, they have to have 7.5 days worth of sick leave when they retire.
So if a max accrual for everyone except fire is 960 hours. So if they have their bank is maxed out, showing that, hey, they're coming to work, they're not abusing their sick leave, they've kept their bank full, but employees can use vacation if they're sick as well. They're allowed to do that. Then they can receive 50% of that 960. So what is that? 480, I believe.
But if they use half an hour or an hour.
If they are not at max accrual, then it will go back to the current policy of just 25%. So if for some reason they had to use some type of leave, then yes, it does drop down to current policy, but they still do receive payouts.
I like that.
Yes.
It is. I appreciate the time that you've taken to do this and the way it's been done. I mean, we got it in November, and then you've had this whole time having discussions and input from not just department heads, but from the employees themselves.
Yes,
I think that's great. Is there any reason why you would want to wait on approval for this? I mean, are you final with it, or would you prefer us to?
I don't know if Jeff wants to say something, but
I
think we just want to make sure that it gets approved in the correct format and fashion.
Okay, so this would be like almost a final draft, but you're not quite that. You want to just make sure you want to go over it one more time.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
And then that way, if y'all do have any additional questions too, we could talk about that.
Not a problem. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. We've got this all worked out, so we're good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Wow. I've never done that before.
Very good, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, are we having executive session this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.